We're live right here. It is hour number 3 on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid till 11 a.m. Eastern Time. One final hour to get you set with everything you need to know on this Thursday. A little sample of everything. Some NBA conversations to start, some NBA handicaps to round it out with some college basketball mixed in. In the middle, MLB previews continue from the American League East on Tuesday to the Central yesterday to the West on this Thursday with our MLB insider, Craig Mish. Then our hockey guy, Donnie Rightside, will welcome in the hockey guy, Pete Jensen from the NHL to take a look at where things are on the ice. Again, DRS, a little bit of everything here in this third and final hour.
I didn't make it down that far in the rundown, so thank you for letting me know the guests coming up here so I can get prepared for a couple unbelievable segments, sure to please the betting public out there. But yes, we are excited for hour number 3 in these final leap year hours of February. And tomorrow, the dance and shoes come on here, but we're rocking and rolling for hour number 3. Of course we are.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. That's the alarm clock starting tomorrow. I'm going to wear a special T-shirt under my lovely suit jacket tomorrow that rings in the celebration. I hope we don't get any calls. What do you think? If I wear a graphic tee that is in celebration of the month of March and the NCAA tournament being on the horizon, you think we're going to get a call?
Look, I think we could get away with it. Kevin tries to throw in a T-shirt for March Madness. I mean, all heck is going to break loose on the network. So maybe we'll let him try. Maybe we'll let him try that one out first, see how far we can go.
Somebody give this guy a radio cue. The radio audience needs to be here. Sirius XM, Channel 159, all of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. It's fast and loose here to end out hour number 2 and start hour number 3. 64 votes. That's where we stand right now in the Fade the Public poll. We thought, after last night's electric game in Los Angeles between the Lakers and the Clippers, the Lakers win the third of 4 meetings this year. They edge out the Clips for the season series victory in the regular season over their foe in the same city, that people would be up and ready to vote on who has a better outlook this year and maybe beyond in the association, the Lakers versus the Clippers. Not so much. But of the public that did vote, more of the public, Donnie, when the question was who wins an NBA championship first, the Clips or the Lake Show, the public going with the Clippers. And frankly, who could fault them looking at the odds this year? Despite the loss last night, despite the fact the Clippers have dropped 3 of their first 4 games following the All-Star break, LA still has the third best price to win the NBA championship, a short number relatively at 5-1, less than $3 back of the Boston Celtics, less than $1 behind the Denver Nuggets, the team in front of them from the Western Conference. The Lakers are 40-1 to win the NBA championship, so obviously the public back the Clips.
Yeah, and rightfully so. And also, let's take a look at the future of both of these teams here. Los Angeles Lakers going to stay in Crypto.com Arena when the Los Angeles Clippers going to move the other side of town in Inglewood and go to the Intuit Dome, which looks like a fabulous new facility that's probably going to host a lot of all-star games, like real high-tech here, a lot of fun, new actually logo, new uniforms coming to town. So maybe the Clippers are on the rise in L.A. Now, granted, it's always going to be a Lakers town here, but we're just looking for the next couple years. And I do believe it's the Clippers have the better shot to actually win a championship. Now, granted, you know what used to happen? You move from Crypto.com Arena over to your new place. What do you bring with you, Ben? The retired jersey numbers, the championship banners, all those years of celebrations. The Intuit Dome is going to be fresh here. They ain't hanging any banners or bringing any banners over to start there. So they might as well start with one of their own and win a championship as we take a look at the votes here coming in at about 60%, and rightfully so. It's a new day in L.A. Not a lot of winning in the past. Maybe the future holds a little bit more for those Clips.
Listen, entering this year, the Clippers had the advantage in the head-to-head in recent history. They had won 11 straight games against the Lakers. The Lakers ended that skid this year. They won 3 of 4. They take the regular season in 2023-24. But when you compare these two franchises, one is the beacon of the association, the other is a little brother and an afterthought. The Lakers have the second most NBA championships ever with 17, maybe even tied with the Celtics now. Regardless, 17 NBA championships. They have appeared in 43 conference finals. They have 63 23 playoff trips. The Clippers have 0 NBA championships. They have reached 1 conference final in only 17 playoff appearances. Again, the Lakers are synonymous with success in the NBA. The Clippers are not. Maybe my true colors are showing growing up in Los Angeles and being a diehard Lakers fan for most of my early life in the Kobe and Shaq era, into the Kobe, Powell, and Lamar Odom era, where I saw 5 NBA championships by the time that I was 16 years old. I will never vote for the Clippers. I will never say that LA in any form or fashion is a Clippers town, because frankly it is not. The Clippers could win 3 straight NBA championships and the Lakers would still be the team favorite in Los Angeles. So I voted for the Lakers, although the Clippers have a much better shot at winning the championship before the other team in Los Angeles.
No, they do, and it's the rightful way to look at it, because if you're saying to yourself, well, maybe the Clippers, can get a rebrand and win in the next couple of years, you want to look the quickest path here to victory, and it's clearly the Clippers as a better team right now than the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah. Even the future of the Lakers, is LeBron James going to stay after this year? Is he waiting for Bronny James to get into the NBA? Is Bronny going to get drafted elsewhere? Then LeBron James moves on. But the one thing we do know about the Lakers, they love superstars. They're built on superstars. Los Angeles is the city of superstars, and if LeBron James wants to 3-year extension, he's playing very good basketball. Case in point last night, getting up there in age, it doesn't seem like father time has caught up at all to LeBron James. They'll pay him handsomely, the same way they paid Kobe Bryant at the end of his career, because legacies and superstars are what the Lakers are. Now, could that be a detriment to winning over the next couple years and tying up a ton of cap space for an aging player? Maybe so here. But just this year and into next year, I think it's the Clippers with the better chance. That's why they got our vote for sure. Ben. Not because we don't think the Lakers can rebound over the next 10 years and win a championship.
And we probably would have said the same thing entering last year around this time as well. Yeah. The Lakers in the play-in tournament, at least in those spots in the Western Conference standings. Could the Clippers remain healthy throughout a postseason? Of course, that did not happen. And the Lakers, even out of the play-in, reached the NBA's Western Conference Finals. This year, that's not going to be the case, it would seem. The Clippers at plus 240 to win the West, second best price. The Lakers nearly $20 longer than that at 22-1. But a big victory for LA. So when you look at the conference standings, the Clippers 17 games above 500, 37-20. Donnie, we thought the Clips might have a run in them despite having a difficult schedule down the stretch to be that top overall seed. The Clippers have started their play since the All-Star break on a slide, dropping 3 of 4. The Lakers still in that 9 spot in the Western Conference standings, 2 games behind the Kings, who are in that 8 spot out West. It seems as though the Lakers are firmly a play-in tournament team. We'll see what that seeding looks like. More MLB previews. The American League West with the reigning World Series champs next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Our Major League Baseball divisional previews continue on this Thursday. This has been the week of the American League. Next week, we will get into the NL. Craig Mish joins us once again on this Thursday as the man in the middle. Also, our MLB insider across the SportsGrid network, the host of Newswire, starting in just under 50 minutes, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, live right here on the grid. Craig, thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday. We started with the American League East. We are working Western. Yesterday was the American League Central. Today, the AL West.
Very competitive division, I think. Look, I think Texas surprised us a lot last year with the way that they played, especially in the postseason, and still remains to be seen if their offseason is over yet or they're still interested in other players, because for a team that's the defending champs to win the World Series and do very little is not really characteristic as to how teams operate. But a great year for the Rangers, and I'm sure that they're going to try, as they say, and run it back again, Ben.
The reigning World Series champs in the American League West, but not booked as the favorites to win the division or the favorites to win the American League pennant. That would be the Houston Astros, minus 105, the price for the Stros to win the AL West. So, Craig, when you look up and down this division, the Astros, Rangers, and Mariners all expected to contend for playoff spots once again. We'll see what the Angels' future is without Shohei Ohtani. And, of course, the Oakland Athletics, the favorites, if you want to call it that, to have the worst record in all of MLB. What is your overall evaluation of the American League West and how competitive it is going to be this season?
Yeah, well, look, Houston will have now Josh Hader for an entire season in the back end of the bullpen to go along with Ryan Presley. I know Verlander came over at the trade deadline, and I'm not even sure if he'll be ready for the beginning of the season. But Houston will be very formidable. They also have a player in Alex Bregman who's on a free agent contract, so he's playing for a new one after the season. I like those things to happen on teams that I want to back, and so I think it is right. I think Houston should be the favorite, but I do think that Texas will be very good again, and there clearly is pressure on Seattle to be in a win-now mode. The Mariners fans want to see them back. They made a couple of off-season acquisitions. Certainly got a little bit better by getting Polanco as well, but we can dive into that.
Win total there for the Astros, 93.5. The one thing we like about them on a year-to-year basis, Craig, is they're just a solid program from top to bottom, and usually the usual suspects, as I like to say, continue to come back in that order as we anticipate. Altuve, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker, Abreu, Diaz, just 1 through 6. Very solid. But as you brought up, the one thing they've always been able to do is maneuver around the bullpen. Getting Hader is absolutely massive. So now you take a look at that starting pitching lineup. That's Valdez, Javier, Brown, Urquidy, and Blanco. And again, we're waiting for some other pitchers here that are injured to come back into that rotation. It's just a great ball club. And to win the World Series, Craig, you got to make the playoffs. This seems like a great playoff roster for me.
Yeah, and I agree, Donnie. But again, a team could win 90 games, 91, 95. I think this number is fair where it's at. So it's not like I'm super bullish on them, to go over their win total. Maybe to win the division seems like something that's, realistic and something that I could back. But look, the key for teams like this that are going to make a run during the regular season and get into the postseason is you have to have those anchors at the top of the rotation, guys that can pitch 150, 200 innings, which are like dinosaurs in this day and age of baseball. And if Verlander is healthy, he is one. We know Framber Valdez is one. We probably think eventually Christian Javier is going to be one too. So you're right, Donnie. They have three very solid starters, nice young pitchers in the 4 and the 5 in that rotation. And now they get to the 6th, 7th inning. They have 3, 4 guys that they could throw at you as well. And also, Jose Abreu did not have a good year in his first year with the Astros too. Let's not forget that. So Astros are primed to win again. It wouldn't shock me at all to see them right back in the postseason once again.
So the Astros have a 10-cent edge to be the favorites to win the American League pennant, plus 380, over the New York Yankees at plus 390. The Rangers, third best price to make it 2 consecutive pennants in the American League, plus 650. The Rangers, the reigning World Series champions. Craig, what does Texas do for an encore in 2024?
Yeah, I think it's probably more of the same. They struggled at the end of last season and then got really hot in the postseason, and I could see this going the same way. Maybe a mid-80s win team, high 80s win team. Their offense in baseball, maybe outside of Philadelphia, Baltimore, those fans would have an exception. But the Rangers' offense is going to be, if not the best, one of the very best in baseball. And now they're going to have arguably the best prospect in baseball playing for them this season at some point, whether it's opening day or 2 weeks in. Who knows how that's going to work. But Wyatt Langford's going to be a star in this league like Corbin Carroll was for Arizona last year too. So the pitching is really the only thing that can hold Texas back. But, I mean, you would have to figure just that offense alone, as long as they proceed like they did last year, they're still going to be right back in the same position. I would say 85, 86 wins, probably fair for them. And they'll be fighting, I think, with Seattle for that number 2 spot because the Mariners, as we'll get to, have the better pitching than the Rangers. They don't have the offense, but they definitely have the better pitching.
Let's get
the
to
Gator
those Mariners
Trump,
here.
by the way, for Wyatt Langford.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was doing, just so you just saw this and didn't think that I was going crazy over here for Craig's alma mater. Please go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So let's get to Seattle once we get that Florida Gators information out of the way, because we might be looking at a 3-big division here for the playoffs, which includes the Seattle Mariners. A 3-1 price here to win this division. J.P. Crawford, Julio Rodriguez, Polanco, Garver, Raleigh, some of the stars at the top of the lineup here for the Mariners. But as Craig pointed out, pitching here, no longer an issue in Seattle. Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby, Miller, and Wu. You have that nice mix of veteran leadership and some younger guys here. Are we looking for the Seattle Mariners to take the next steps this year in 2024, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I could see 3 teams from the division getting in. Absolutely. I think Seattle's pitching, as you mentioned, 1 through 5. Now, again, that's not the way it's going to end. We know that. It never does. But going into the season, I mean, you're looking at Castillo and Kirby. I mean, those pitchers are phenomenal. And Miller and Wu is very underrated at the back end of that starting rotation. They got Mitch Garver. They got Polanco. So they solidified a little bit more of the offense with Teoscar Hernandez leaving. So, Donnie, I do think that Seattle is right in the mix for the postseason. Again, that West, I think those 3 teams are just so much ahead of the other 2 in the division. The only difference is, as we'll get to with the Angels and A's, is that in the division, you're not playing those teams at the bottom as much as you did in the past. And I think that people seem to forget that in the past, you're playing against Oakland, 18, 19 times. They've cut that almost in half. So that's going to be a significant difference as it was last year as well.
The Seattle Mariners fell just short of being one of those wild card teams in the American League last year after reaching the playoffs in 2022, snapping a nearly 2-decade-long postseason drought. So as we look at the Angels, what can be expected in Anaheim post Shohei Ohtani? Craig, you are great at looking at win totals for teams entering a new MLB campaign. And unlike many, you are unafraid to take an under. Tell us about what your evaluation is for the Halos this upcoming season.
Yeah, this would be one of my favorite opinions of the season. I don't see how the Angels get to 71 wins, 71 and a half, 72 in some spots, 70 and a half. This thing is sort of plummeting a little bit, and for good reason. I mean, simple napkin math tells you with a team that won in the low 70s last year with a guy who had a 10 WAR in Shohei Ohtani, I mean, if you just subtract those 10 wins, how do the Angels get to 70? I don't get it. Like, who do they have exactly? They did virtually nothing in the offseason. A couple of nice players, Neto at shortstop. I get it. They still have Mike Trout. If you extrapolate 80 games, maybe he plays 130, add 3-4 more wins to them. Could that get them to 70? I just don't think so. I think they're one of the worst teams in the American League. The owner's talking about selling the team. And I think you have to ask yourself this fair question. Is the story at the trade deadline going to be the possibility of Mike Trout getting moved again? Are we going to go through this again? And if so, they're going to lose 100 games. They have no farm system. So that's when I look at these win totals of teams in the 70s and say to myself, which teams are willing to just shed salary like the Angels did last year? I think the Angels are right there again without Ohtani. I don't get this win total. I think the Angels could lose 100 games this year. I don't think they get close to that number.
You don't need to do any more convincing for me. I am in on the under of the Angels. The A's, the lowest win total in MLB, 57.5. Again, Oakland has the shortest price to have the worst record around Major League Baseball this year at plus 170. Craig, thank you. We go into the NHL up next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The home stretch in the National Hockey League with the Stanley Cup playoffs very much on the horizon. the Ice Advice, live right here on this Thursday on the early line. I am Ben. He is hockey guy Donnie Rightside, but he's not quite the hockey guy that NHL's Pete Jensen is, the host of the Fantasy on Ice podcast. Pete joins us on this Thursday to get you set for a marquee slate around the NHL and look at where the league is with just a few weeks left until the Stanley Cup postseason. Pete, thank you so much for being here on the final day of February here on the early line.
Absolutely, guys. Great to see you. And yeah, we're hitting the stretch run of the season right now. So the wild card races are heating up. There's a lot of intriguing make-miss playoff storylines. If you have a hunch on a certain team, just nail it there because it's a fun time of year in the NHL.
Pete, what a marquee matchup we have at the top of the slate tonight in the National Hockey League. Inside TD Garden in Boston, the Bruins a home ice favorite around a minus 160 number as they welcome in the reigning Stanley Cup champs, the Vegas Golden Knights. Is this the game of the night around the NHL?
Yeah, it is for sure. Vegas won the matchup at home earlier in the season. Couple of things have changed since then. They had a big win against Toronto the other day, but they've been sliding a bit lately over the past 2 weeks or so. Aiden Hill is back. At that time, he was injured. Logan Thompson won that game against the Bruins in Vegas. And also Jack Eichel was the only player in that game that had a multi-point game the first time. He remains out with a knee injury, but hopefully coming back soon on the horizon if you're holding a ticket on Vegas to do something big again, maybe replicate winning the Stanley Cup from last year. But yeah, with Boston, I just continue to marvel at how this team is near the top of the NHL standings, despite everybody that they lost, not only in free agency last year, but losing Bergeron and Krejci to retirement. I don't know that many teams out there could withstand what Boston has this season.
Take a look at this game also, Pete. You have the Bruins coming in on a 3-game losing streak, all of those road games, so maybe some home cooking tonight in Boston, but a future outlook for the Bruins. Now, we know teams go through their ebbs and flows. You take a look here at the Stanley Cup price at a 10-1 number, the Eastern Conference at a plus 470. Are we worried about the Boston Bruins moving forward? And also, what are their prospects here for maybe lifting the Stanley Cup?
I think nobody's really talking about them despite all this success in the East. I hear all the talk being about Florida. I personally picked Carolina at the start of the season. They're starting to get healthy little by little, so they have great outlook. And of course, the Rangers are 11 of 12, so they've been the talk of the town and the whole league really after that incredible Stadium Series comeback. But Boston is the team that maybe has the most unfinished business, right, after getting bounced in the first round last year. One thing they could always fall back on, which is a great thing for the postseason, they have hands down the best goalie tandem in the league with Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. They also have guys that continue to step up to the plate in expanded roles and deliver, like Charlie Coyle. That guy has kept his breakout season going despite those couple of retirements I mentioned in the preseason that were ill-timed, and everybody they lost, Bertuzzi, Taylor Hall, Dmitry Orlov in free agency. So I would say that Boston is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender with that extra motivation that you always look for. The playoff failure of the previous year and maybe bouncing back here when everybody least expects it. Look for Boston also to try to solidify their roster, if possible, within the salary cap before the trade deadline on March 8th.
I mean, good for the Bees this year, following a historic regular season a year ago, to not win the President's Trophy, to maybe have a better outlook come the Stanley Cup playoffs. The standings down the stretch of the NHL season are very jumbled. So are the odds to win Lord Stanley's Cup. By the way, 9 teams right now, separated by just $5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook, from an 8-1 range to a 13-1 number. Boston, that 6th best price at 10-1. The team that is the favorite, the Edmonton Oilers. Second best price, another team from the Western Conference in the Dallas Stars, plus 850. The Stars, 79 points so far this season, same as the Winnipeg Jets. A matchup of the two top teams in the NHL Central Division tonight in Dallas. The Stars, a slight home ice favorite. Pete, what is the breakdown for this matchup on a Thursday in Dallas?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen here. I mean, 2 great goalies on both sides. Of course, Ottinger has been really solid since coming back from injury. I know Dallas is spinning a little out of control of late, but they just made a big move last night to acquire Chris Tanev, one of the most underrated stay-at-home defensemen in the league. I think it's really important for whatever angle you're looking at betting-wise, whether it's the Stanley Cup, the ultimate prize, the President's Trophy, they're still in the mix for that, the Western Conference title in the regular season or the playoffs. I mean, Dallas is in the thick of everything right now, and they just significantly boosted their back end in addition to having guys like Miro Heiskanen, who's one of the best defensemen in the league, Thomas Harley, one of the best goal-scoring defensemen in the league. But then in this particular matchup, Tanev's not going to be joining the mix most likely in time for this game. He'll probably make his Stars debut over the weekend. So Winnipeg, a lot of people are not talking about them. They might be the most consistent team of that whole logjam arms race in the Western Conference. Since December 1st, they're tied with Edmonton for the most points in the entire NHL, and they have their goaltending solidified with the Vezina Trophy frontrunner in Connor Hellebuck. So this is definitely a great matchup to watch and a precursor of maybe a playoff meeting down the line.
Pete, let's take a look at the Western Conference as a whole. Similar to what we take a look at on a day-to-day basis in the NBA, there are a lot of intriguing options, including 6 teams at the FanDuel Sportsbook at under a 10-1 price. Current leaders in the clubhouse, the Edmonton Oilers, only 10 cents ahead of the Colorado Avalanche, followed by the Stars, Jets, Canucks, and the Knights here. The Western Conference is up for grabs. Who's getting the money there, Pete?
Well, I mean, look at the number on Winnipeg, like what I was just talking about. And they made a big move to get Sean Monahan. He has 7 points in 9 games with 3 on the power play since coming over from the Montreal Canadiens. And that helps their power play, which has been the only weak point for the Winnipeg Jets. Look, in the offseason, they traded away Pierre-Luc Dubois. Maybe he didn't want to be there. I mean, who cares at this point? Gabriel Velarde has been a seamless fit on their top line with Scheifele and Kyle Connor, 2 elite forwards. They got the secondary guys now with Monahan and Nikolai Ehlers, who's been mostly healthy this season and starting to reach his peak in terms of point production. So, and again, I mentioned Hellebuck. So they're priced behind Colorado and Dallas. I'm not going to argue that, but they're just as dangerous as either of those teams. So any chance that you could get a little separation there, I think you got to at least dabble in it.
Pete, the Canucks have the 5th best price to win the Western Conference Championship at plus 650, but Vancouver, 83 points this year, tied for the most all around the NHL alongside the Rangers. New York, of course, has been red hot, as Pete alluded to. The Canucks host the LA Kings tonight in Vancouver. Regular season success for sure, Pete, for the Canucks. What is the ceiling for Vancouver come playoff time?
The ceiling's as high as anybody. They have to get some things figured out here, though. Clearly, the top of the conversation, unfortunately for them right now, is signing their best player beyond this season. Elias Pettersson is a free agent potentially at the end of this year in his contract year. He's having a heck of a past 2 seasons. Few players, I don't know, maybe you can count on one hand how many players have been better than Elias Pettersson over the past 2 seasons combined. When you consider that he had 100 points last year, a career high, and now, as part of this like 5-headed monster that they have been sporting offensively with Quinn Hughes and JT Miller, Brock Besser. I mean, the team's ridiculous. But right now they're in the midst of a rare slide, worst stretch of the season, 1-4-1 in their past 6. So is this a bounce back opportunity against the Kings tonight? I certainly think so. But again, how do you prevent that drastic regression that has plagued the LA Kings this year, plagued the Edmonton Oilers at the start of the season, and pretty much anybody in that Pacific Division has gone on a tailspin at one time or another? We'll see how Vancouver can recover from this and in the process get their trade deadline acquisition, Elias Lindholm, up to speed in time for the most important time of year in the playoffs.
Pete, let's get to a mismatch on the ice tonight. That's Colorado and Chicago. We take a look at a road team here favored at the FanDuel Sportsbook. The money line, a minus 315 price. The total in this game listed at 6.5. Are we looking at an easy blowout winner here for the road team, the Avalanche?
Well, I mean, Chicago's definitely more competitive at home. Bedard is healthy, so that gives them a chance to keep things interesting in any given matchup. The Avs have had some road struggles lately. Again, I'm leaning with the Avs just because they're the much deeper, much more explosive team on paper. But you never know. The Blackhawks clearly building for the future. They might get the top one of the top couple of picks once again this year after drafting Bedard first overall last year. But he's in the vicinity of a point per game. He's the Calder Trophy front runner. He's electric. Him versus McKinnon. Get your popcorn ready for that, even if the Blackhawks lose. So it's going to be really fun to watch this matchup either way.
Connor Bedard now a minus 550. Hefty odds-on favorite to win the Calder Trophy, which goes to the Rookie of the Year in the National Hockey League. Nathan McKinnon now 20 cents behind Toronto's Austin Matthews, who's on a crazy goal-scoring pace. Might be the first guy to hit 70 in nearly 3 decades in the National Hockey League. Austin Matthews plus 190. Nathan McKinnon plus 210. Quickly here, Pete. 30 seconds left. Who wins the heart?
Probably McKinnon, just because he has reached that full-fledged ceiling that we've been anticipating for years, but he just dealt with injuries. I mean, he's the fastest player in the league this year based on edge stats. He's got a crazy high shot volume like usual. He's right up there with Kucherov. If he could somehow pass Kucherov for the scoring title, I think he wins the Hart Trophy. But Matthews is incredible goal-scoring-wise as well.
Pete Jensen, we appreciate it. More TEL next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Around the association we go on this Thursday. 8-game slate on this Thursday in the NBA. It's a good thing you're watching the early line on this Thursday, leap day as well, because it's just your luck. You have the two premier NBA handicappers on the SportsGrid network with you. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. One of those 8 games, a marquee matchup in the Mile High City at altitude, an NBA Finals rematch between the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets on the second leg of a home back-to-back. They remain in Denver after a 21-point win over Sacramento last night. The Nuggets covered as a 7.5-point favorite. Denver now a 5-point home favorite against the Heat. The over-under 213.5. Jimmy Butler served his 1-game suspension as a part of the brawl in the dust-up against the Pelicans over the weekend. He is expected to play tonight in the NBA Finals rematch. Denver won it in 5 a year ago. What happens this time?
Yeah, and also, again, trying to prep this game for a night start. But if we look at the anticipated starting lineup tonight for the Miami Heat, we got Rozier, Hero, Butler, Jovic, and Adebayo, which means that Jaime Jaquez can come off of the bench here. If I can get that starting lineup and supporting cast, I'm going to take the points tonight here with the Miami Heat. Now, granted, Denver just played last night in elevation. They're used to it. They're at home. They're really good. Not a lot of high level of stress if they easily put away the Kings last night. But I do think you're going to get a much, much better force here for the Miami Heat. And take a look at that total, Ben. We're used to seeing in the NBA anything south of 230 is a really slow tempo. 213.5. If you want to grind this game to a halt for the Miami Heat and get that official starting lineup out there, which includes their normal starters for the season, I like the Miami Heat tonight going up against the Denver Nuggets on that back-to-back.
So, DRS, when you look at the listed points props right now, 2 for Miami, both 19.5, Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. Only 1 for Denver on the second leg of this back-to-back. It's Nikola Jokic, 25.5. I'm sorry, I just have to ask here. When you said Nikola Jovic, that would be different, the Serbian guy, Nikola Jovic from Nikola Jokic, right?
Same thing. Jays are Jays, man. Look, we're talking basketball. You got that smooth jumper out here. We call it a smooth J. There you go. Jovic. A hey for Jokic and a J for Jovic. Yeah. Anyway, when you look at the Miami Heat, they've won 5 straight games, DRS. They've covered in all 5 games. 4 of those 5 outright as an underdog, even covered as a short road favorite in Portland a few nights ago. Very shorthanded. No Jimmy Butler because of the suspension. No Tyler Hero because of injury, but Miami still picked up their 5th straight win. In fact, Miami has covered in 5 straight as an underdog. Miami has covered in 8 straight games as well. Denver, a good home favorite this year, 23-5 straight up at altitude, a favorite in all 28 contests. They are 14-13-1. A team on a slide that also might be without some of its best available tonight inside Madison Square Garden. That's the New York Knicks, a 4.5-point home underdog. Maybe that's an indication at this juncture. Jalen Brunson, we await his availability for tonight inside MSG. Golden State, a 4.5-point road favorite. Total at 225 or 222.5. The Knicks, DRS, have dropped 7 of their last 10 games. They have only covered once in that span. It was as an underdog outright in their first game against Philly following the All-Star break, but they've been a dog 7 times in the last 10 games, and they're just 1-6 against the number. And also, you're taking a look here at the Golden State Warriors, maybe rounding into form now is getting Chris Paul back into the fold, which boasts that bench now that does include Klay Thompson, no longer a starter with the Golden State Warriors. He's moving to the bench. So you like what you got going on, but isn't that telling? Like, it's almost like if the New York Knicks were out playing in San Francisco and you told me the Warriors were favored by 4.5 points. I go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But the Warriors being on the road, being favored by 4.5 points, certainly an eye-opener. If we're just looking at this game in its totality and reading lines, that's a really good line here for the Warriors. But Jalen Brunson is listed in that starting lineup. But again, it's not a great one. It's Brunson, DiVincenzo, Hart, Achua, and Hartenstein, who Hartenstein and Brunson missed the past game. All of these guys are expected to play 35-plus minutes in this game. So if I'm just reading the line, this is a really good number here for the Warriors. But, of course, if Jalen Brunson doesn't show up in this game tonight, they're probably going to get hammered by double digits here. That line tells me the Warriors should be the play tonight, Ben.
So Golden State continuing to play good basketball. They had won 6 of 7 entering the All-Star break. They had covered in all 6 of those victories. Since the All-Star break, Golden State has won 3 of 4. Their only loss against the Denver Nuggets. The Warriors have covered in all 3 of the 4 victories since the All-Star break as well. Under in 4 straight. Golden State under in 9 of 10. The Knickerbockers, of course, in 2024, now 27 contests. They have gone under in 21 of 27 at 222.5 tonight. I tend to think that trend continues, maybe an under between both. Jalen Brunson did miss the most recent game for the Knicks against the Pelicans. As Donnie mentioned, he is expected to play tonight, and he is really expected to be that beacon of hope for New York. 30.5 is the points prop for Brunson. The over has the juice at minus 125. When you look at New York all year long as an underdog, again, they've only covered once in their last 7 games as a dog. Not good for the Knicks. 9-5-2 against the spread. The Lakers, a huge victory last night against the LA Clippers. The Lakers' second leg of a back-to-back. Technically a change of road versus home, but they remain in the same place, the same venue. The Lakers a 9.5-point favorite against the Washington Wizards, the over-under 244. Now, I think it would be safe to say, Donnie, second leg of a back-to-back for LeBron James in his 21st NBA season, scored 19 of his team-high 34 points last night for the Lakers in the fourth and final quarter. Is he going to play? Again, the Lakers not a ton of wiggle room here, firmly in the play-in tournament in that 9 spot, and Golden State playing good basketball, fresh on their heels.
Yeah, this is where things change here for me, Ben, with my perspective on the Lakers, because what typically should happen, and rightfully so, we were wondering about the Lakers, even with their starting lineup, let's just say last night. We said, well, they weren't on a back-to-back. Why would you play LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Well, you're playing a tough opponent in the Clippers that you know you get an easier opponent the next day. So maybe in normal circumstances, you know what, Anthony Davis, take the night off. We want to make sure you have available for tomorrow so we can beat the Wizards and or LeBron James. Both of those guys played last night. Both of those guys played major minutes, but they won. But your point, Ben, very valid here. You have an easy victory tonight against the Wizards. Yeah. You want to risk it by saying, like, you know what? We played hard last night. Let's sit AD and LeBron, and yeah, we still should win, but you can't lose this basketball game. It's one of those where you suck it up with your superstars and say, you know what, guys? We're still at home. There was no travel here. Let's go out and beat the Wizards. We'll get you time off down the line against a team that maybe would be a little bit tougher to beat. Let's just say if Phoenix is lined up on the schedule or a Boston Celtics, a team of that ilk, maybe you back off. I think you get a full gas effort out of the Lakers tonight, and I think they win by double digits in that case.
This is the final game of the 8-game slate. It does not tip until 10:40 p.m. Eastern time. That is in 12 hours from now. There are no points props available for anybody, either on Washington or L.A. The Wizards have lost 12 consecutive games because Detroit beat Chicago in OT a few nights ago, or just beat Chicago, I think, even in regulation. Both Detroit and Washington now tied for the worst record in the NBA, 9-49. The Wiz have lost 12 in a row. They have covered 5 times in this 12-game skid, but each and every time as a double-digit dog, technically not quite double digits yet, only getting 9.5 points. The Phoenix we go next, an 8.5-point spread in favor of the Suns against the Houston Rockets. The over-under 233.5. Now, the Lakers only have a half-game advantage over the Golden State Warriors for the 9-10 split in the Western Conference standings. Phoenix tied for that 5 spot at the moment, 7.5 games behind the Minnesota Timberwolves with the New Orleans Pelicans. 10 games above 500, expected to make it 11 games above 500 tonight. Booked as an 8.5-point favorite.
Yeah, maybe even take a look at a total in this game as you see it listed there, 234. The Suns are a heavy favorite, and rightfully so. The Houston Rockets, maybe a dabble with them a little bit at home in Houston, but certainly for me, not on the road. And also, taking a look at those estimated starting lineups tonight, how about this? Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, Kevin Durant, and Jusuf Nurkic in the lineup tonight. If we're getting a full-go Suns team, which again, we won't know till this afternoon, they should easily dispatch of the Houston Rockets in that game tonight. And always, if we take a look at the prop bets here, 234, which is great. Devin Booker should go off tonight, Kevin Durant as well. But Bradley Beal being back in the lineup, that's going to be that key linchpin. If we have the big 3 there, I'm interested in the Phoenix Suns later on tonight, Ben.
Phoenix, again, looking to find better basketball here since the All-Star break, where the Suns have stood at this moment. Since that All-Star break, they have played in 3 games. They dropped their first 2. They got a win over the Lakers on Sunday. a lot of days off for the Suns in the Valley. They did cover as a 3.5-point home favorite, winning by double digits. All 3 games since the All-Star break under for the Phoenix Suns. Tonight's total, 233.5. The hottest team in the NBA, or the hottest team in the Western Conference at least, Oklahoma City. They've won 6 straight. They have covered in all 6. An 11-point road favorite tonight in San Antonio against the Spurs. The Nets, a slight 1.5-point home favorite against the Hawks. Brooklyn looking up at Atlanta. The Hawks have won 2 straight since we learned that Trae Young would be out for at least the foreseeable future. The Bucks, DRS, a 12-point road favorite in Charlotte. Milwaukee blew out Charlotte in Milwaukee just a few nights ago. The Bucks, of course, have won 3 straight since the All-Star break. They've covered in all 3. They have started to figure it out. That All-Star break bump under Doc Rivers for the Bucks.
Yeah, no, and it looks like they're forming their, opinion, or we're forming the opinions of the Milwaukee Bucks on the fly, and they're going, okay, maybe they handle their differences. We know they're immensely talented here, and they should easily dispatch of a very bad Charlotte Hornets team, but they are a road favorite here, up from the opening number, Ben, at 10.5, up to 12 now, and a total of 218 in that game. The Bucks should win. Do you want to lay the 12 points on the road? Not necessarily, but if I had to bet it, I would bet that the Milwaukee Bucks would cover. A couple of those games that you just touched on and talked about, that is an interesting one, even though for standings perspective and NBA curiosity, maybe not. But the Hawks and the Nets game here, listed as a slight favorite to the Brooklyn Nets at -1.5. I remember us handicapping a game like, hey, the Brooklyn Nets are on the road as a favorite against Memphis. I don't want to back the Brooklyn Nets. They had an unbelievable performance in that game, easily dispatching of Memphis. Maybe they can do the same. I was wrong also on that second game without having Trae Young, where the Atlanta Hawks looked great, even without an awesome performance out of DeJounte Murray. Probably a slight lean here for the Brooklyn Nets for me, but also Oklahoma City Thunder on the road getting a lot of respect now as double-digit favorites going up against the San Antonio Spurs. But I got to tell you, the Thunder win that game, but I would take the San Antonio Spurs getting double digits at home in that one. But don't get me wrong, OKC is going to be locked in. They should win it. I just don't know if I want to lay that 10, 11, 12 points there.
The Spurs have covered in 3 of the 4 games since the All-Star break, all as a double-digit dog. OKC, best covered team in the NBA. Second best is Orlando. The Magic 16-5 against the spread this year. They're laying 6 at home tonight against the Utah Jazz. 3 top 25 teams in action in men's college basketball on this Thursday. All late night out on the West Coast. Washington State hoping to bounce back from a loss this weekend against Arizona State after upsetting Arizona a week ago. They're a 6.5-point favorite taking on USC. St. Mary's 15.5-point favorite visiting Malibu and Pepperdine. And quickly here, DRS, the Zags a 4.5-point favorite against USF. The game is on a neutral floor, but in San Francisco, inside the Chase Center, where the Dubs play their home ball.
And by the way, I don't want to give this away, but we always under buy give our best play of the day to go away. Could my best play of the day be coming from USC and Washington State? You know what we're going to have to do, Ben? We're going to have to hold on for at least one more segment here to find out where we're going.
We're going to have some best bets, and it looks like they're going to be in college basketball. We'll do that up next here on the Early Line.
Team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Best bets before we go, closing out our 3 hours together live right here on this Thursday on the early line. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside. This is the SportsGrid app, the ultimate sports betting companion app available for download at both the Apple and the Play Store. Scan that QR code on your screen. Included in the SportsGrid app, 5-star plays. Those are best bets, and so are these. A college basketball focus, perhaps, on this final day in the month of February. When we talk to you next, it's tomorrow, Friday. That's March 1st, the first day where the madness intensifies in the month of March in college basketball. So before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time for bye-bye-bye. Donnie Rightside, he gave us a tease in our most recent segment as we looked at the early college basketball slate. Looking at the game tonight between Wazoo and USC. 6.5-point number in favor of Washington State. What's the edge?
I'm going to back the USC Trojans with Andy Enfield. Why? Past 2 out of 3 games, beating Utah at home 68-64, losing a heartbreaker to Colorado, which had a big lead in double overtime, then beating UCLA on the road at UCLA, which means a good performance should be in line for us tonight as well. It's just a simple matchup here. USC does not have a great defense, but how about this, Ben? They don't care about you shooting the three-point shot. Well, how about this? Washington State doesn't care about shooting the three-point shot either. So let's cancel that out. Also, number 1 in the paint and point distribution for Washington State. Number 1 in the Pac-12. You know who's the most stingy team in the Pac-12 at giving points up in the paint? It's USC. Boogie Ellis and the boys come to town. We're going to take the 6.5 points with USC tonight against Washington State. How about that?
USC is healthier at the moment, but taking 6.5 on the road in Pullman on the Palouse, I don't know. Gonzaga has 2 quad 1 opportunities before the regular season is done to end out the regular season against St. Mary's tonight in a neutral site game against San Francisco in San Francisco at the Chase Center. Gonzaga money line, Nebraska money line on the road in Columbus against Ohio State. We'll talk to you in March. That's tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time here on the Grid.